Hello stickerists, Jameson here again with a contact staff tutorial video on continuous steve variations. I also have a breakdown of the full steve in this video. It's at the very end for those of you who like to skip ahead. There are 17 variations in this tutorial video. As I discover more and learn more, I will be sure to tack those on to the end of this video with YouTube's video editor. I'll make a notation about that down in the About section in case you happen to overlook it, so check back occasionally and see if there's something new, or if you have a video submission of your own that you'd like for me to add to this, feel free to submit it. And by the way, if you appreciate the tutorial videos that I put together, if you've learned something from them, if you'd like to give back somehow, I would appreciate the consideration of purchasing a contact staff from me that I have designed specifically to your needs. You can find information about that down in the About section of this video, as well as at the end of the video. So here we go, continuous steve variations. I've started this video out with some of the more simple ones, the way that I kind of picked them up as continuous movements. We're going to begin with the cross arm steve. In this example, I'm more or less just crossing my hands. As you can see, the staff rides up off of one hand and down onto the next one underneath. You can also do this continuously with your arms crossed, more around the forearm or the elbow, but it's essentially the same move. You're just trying to transfer the staff from one part of one arm over to the same part of the other arm. And you can drill each one of these, by the way, without having to hit the neck wrap if you like, just so that you can work on the continuous side. Just stop the staff when it makes it to your neck and whip it back the other direction to learn the other direction. And as you can see here, it should be a smooth, fluid movement. And there's the prayer steve. In the prayer or anything when your hands are interlocked, it's really important to pay attention to the arm that's rising being in the way of the staff, while the arm that's not in play yet is well out of the way and down. You kind of make a 90-degree angle, as you can see here. That way the other arm is not in the way of the end of the staff as it comes around that hand. And with the prayer in particular, there's a slight propeller that happens. You kind of give the staff a little twirl when it hits your pinky to make it around to the other side. You can't really just expect the staff to transfer from one hand to the other without a little swirl from your hands there. As you get better with this, you can rise your arms higher and higher in the air. Requires more speed, more timing. In the beginning, you can do this where you more or less point your pinkies to the sky, and the staff more or less just balances and rests between the spin and gravity on the back of your hand. So rather than having your hands vertical completely, as it rises up onto your pinky, you can flatten your hand out, and it'll help to learn how to do this along the way. Then there's an inverted prayer. You basically switch so that the backs of the hands are against each other. And I find it easiest to put the up arm underneath the down arm, if that makes sense. You can see it here. It's rising up my right, and I've got my right basically behind my left when it comes to like what the staff is about to run into. And you're really transferring from like wrist to wrist in this one. You can't quite get it up to the hand to do it in the inverted. You have to reach back a little further than you would normally with a regular prayer. Okay, here's another variation with your hands together with interlaced fingers. It works much the same as the prayer, except it won't really come up onto the fingertips or the pinkies. It's always going to stay on the bottom of the palm. And you can, here's a demonstration of what I meant by balancing it on the bottom of the hand. As it reaches it, you can push up. And it's very much the same as the prayer is, with one arm rising before the other, as you can see there. And here I'll start doing the push, where it'll land on the back of my hand, and I'll just push up rather than letting it transfer from palm to palm. So interlaced and the prayer variations are very much the same. It's just something different that you're doing with your hands, and it's pretty for your audience to see those variations come along. So while doing either one of the three that I just previously showed you, you can also do propellers inside of them while your arms are still together. And here's a variation of the interlaced, but you're going to extend your palms out toward the audience so they can see that your fingers are lapped together. This one's actually quite hard to do. The staff will actually roll across the back of your hand and over the pinkies. It's actually a pretty difficult one to pull off. Definitely has a lot of flair to it though. And as you can see, nobody's perfect. It does take a lot of time to develop these and get them smooth. Okay, moving on to some palm spin transfers. By the way, if you don't know how to do a palm spin, here's a really good way to get used to it. Hold the staff directly over your head, grip it, twist it, and then open up your fingers so it spins in your palm. You can kind of use your fingers to guide it into the spot you like. I tend to stay on the heel of the hand and not so much the palm. And once that's comfortable, you can start learning how to glide out of a palm spin, as you see here, down into the drop for the first part of the Steve. Palm spin, and then you twist and push your arm out to where you'd usually have it for a Steve release. You can roll down the arm there. And then coming back up, which I should show you in a second here. Coming back up is kind of the same, but in reverse. It rolls up. As it reaches your wrist, you're going to twist your palm and face the sky. Reach up over the top of your head. Don't try to reach out in front of yourself. It should land right in your palm. It's a really easy way to drill it. I'm showing you right here around the neck. Roll it up the arm, palm spin. And once it's getting kind of smooth, you can try putting it together. Palm spin and let it transfer to the other hand and then roll down. See how easy it is to just go right over the top of your head with it? Now moving on to something that I kind of came up with myself. I'm sure somebody else did it. A knuckles out variation of this. It's a lot like the hand over hand. You put your fists together at your thumbs, show the audience your knuckles. Let it ride across the top of the knuckles. And much the same as the prayer and the interlaced, you want to make sure you're rising one arm before the other. It's kind of like a wave motion. This one's pretty tricky. And this one also opens a lot of cool things. You can hold a hat in your hands. You could hold a candlestick in your hands. It's kind of a practice for putting something else in your hand to show off the flair and the skill you have. Here's a hand over hand. Now this one was really difficult for me to figure out. Like, I figured out a lot of other variations before this one made sense. Much the same as the cross arm, except you're actually holding one palm on top of the back of the other hand. And you want to make sure that the up arm is on top of the down arm, so it transitions off your fingertips down onto the other hand. It really requires a lot of accentuation from your arms and your shoulders, as I show you there. It's kind of a small racetrack you're trying to stay on with that one. Here's a cool one that I came up with too, just trying to do more or less the knuckle variation, but point 2 index fingers out, and more or less do a prayer off of just the index fingers. And if that's cool, you can also try it across the pinky fingers. That one's fun. Just shows off some flair. And here we go. Here's a minimal variation called the chest Steve. It's called minimal because we're not doing the neck wrap as displayed in the in my original half Steve tutorial. You're more or less just doing arms. It crawls across the chest and then rides back up the opposite arm. You may want to check out my matrix tutorial video on a stretch routine that'll help you open up your ability to lean back that far before you try doing this, because it is very possible to hit yourself in the nose or the ear if you're not keeping things flat and you're not leaning back far enough. So if either of those two things are happening, you either need to stretch more or you need to flatten out your horizontal plane with the staff. It's a good front view of it. In a lot of tutorial videos, people talk about turning your head sideways to avoid getting hit. That doesn't really work for me. My chin and my ear tend to stick up just as far as each other, so I'd rather see what's happening when I'm about to get hit than have my head turned to the side and get smacked in the ear. Whatever works for you, though. But you obviously need to get your head out of the way as the staff comes onto your chest, or you will get conked. These aren't the cleanest chest Steves, by the way. You can get it all the way up to your collarbone. I tend to stick more around the breastbone than the collar. So here's another variation of the minimal Steve, the backside version. So essentially, same thing, except for rather than transitioning across your chest and leaning back, you're going to transition it only across your shoulders, skip the neck, and lean forward. You can't see what's going on this one. It's pure feel. And I have some problems with it sometimes. I also find for myself anyway that it's easiest to do this consecutively if I'm doing the hand over hand transfer across the arms. Neck, up the arm, hand over hand, and then duck. And it just follows that path of your arms and the shoulders. Yeah. Oh, and it hits the ground. So then you can think about putting these two things together. If you get them pretty smooth, you can link both minimals into a consecutive little combo there. Ooh. That's fun. Okay, so here's the caged Steve. Rather than transferring from hand to hand over your head, you're going to transfer from hand to hand below, like the floor plane of the horizontal. Here's a good way to practice it without using the neck in the middle of it. It helps to have a staff that is shorter than your chin to pull this off. You need a good wingspan to reach out far enough and not hit yourself with the staff as this happens. I've also seen some people stick that into the staff between their legs on the way down, which is pretty nifty. So there's also a cool little combo between the caged Steve and the chest Steve. You can consecutively do both of those with your hands caged around the staff. I'm going to do the cage on the bottom first. It rolls down, switches arms in between the legs, it comes back up, and you dive out from behind it. That's a pretty sloppy variation of it, but I hope you get the gist. Alright, here's the toss Steve. Now this is much like the first thing I showed you with the cross arm, except you're going to start giving a little flick for the staff to pass over the top of your head. Start working on it inch at a time, inch by inch, foot by foot, rotation by rotation. Start off small and then build your way up to where you're actually giving it a legitimate toss. The staff can spin as many as, from half of a spin over your head to 4 or 5, I'd imagine, depending on how high you toss it and how fast it's spinning. And again, just like the half Steve tutorial I taught you, you want all of this to happen right in front of your face. If you're tossing it off to the left and you're trying to catch it with your right, you're probably not going to catch it very well. But if you're putting it right down the middle on your toss, your right arm doesn't have to go very far to catch it there. And also, it's important to think about soft hands while this is happening. Give the staff an angle path like you usually would have with a Steve to catch it with. So if it just comes down and your arm's flat and level, you're just going to end up with a bruise and the staff's not going to roll. If your hand's straight up in the air, it's never going to slow down before it comes to your neck or your head, and you're probably going to smack yourself in the face. So take your time. Start off small, get comfortable with it before building it up to big ones. Okay, so here's the full Steve, the creme de la creme. In the full Steve, you want the staff to transition down the outside of your arm, up to your hand, and then you're going to do a half propeller as it rolls down the inside of the arm back to your neck. It goes all the way up and then all the way down your arm. There really is no transition between hand to hand, and your hand needs to make this spiral motion. You see me make there? In order to let the staff slow down on the way down the inside, you really need to stretch your arm out and away to create that low angle, slow the speed down. And then the other side of it, it comes across the throat, and you have to twist your shoulder and try to get your hand and arm down into the path. Wait until that end of the staff is actually on your shoulder, like it was about to wrap your neck, before you allow it to ride onto the other arm. If you go too early, you'll just hit yourself again. And when I first learned how to do this, MCP showed it with the turn because she couldn't do it standing still. I can still barely do it standing still. It's really difficult. It'll help you a lot to start rotating with the staff as you try to do this. It helps to slow down the speed and give you enough momentum to get across your throat over to the other arm. You can just stand here and just drill just one arm like you saw me do there, over and over, to kind of work on what you need to do mechanically to help it ride up and down that arm. Don't be afraid to turn with it. See, not everybody's perfect. And here's a cool variation of the full Steve. Go ahead and add a duck out to the back side as well as the front side of the neck. Almost had it there. There's another variation. I think I come back out here. Another angle on that. That's a tricky one. So yeah, that's all I got for now, everybody. 17 different variations on Steve transfers, continuous variations, and a couple combos in there for you. If you have any other suggestions. I know, and like I said, this is just what I know of the Steve. I know that there are other ones that I haven't quite figured out yet, such as the behind the back Steve. There is a head Steve, like a minimal head Steve, where you skip the neck via the hand from hand to shoulder. And there's a couple other ones that I can't even think of the names of right now. There are several more. Don't think that this is all that there is or that all that you should learn. Be experimental, find something new, blaze your own trail, send me a video of it, and I'll try to learn it and incorporate it into this one, and then the whole community can learn together. But yeah, that's it. Hope you enjoyed the video, and keep spinning. Hey guys, so check this out. The staff you saw me using in this tutorial video is actually one of my own design. I actually make and sell these to the public as well. It was actually just a fire staff that I've dressed up with some color on it so that you could see it better in the video, and I also use it this way a lot for stage performances if I can't use fire. But this is what it looks like underneath all of it. It's actually a double wick fire staff, and I use 2-inch wide Kevlar and 2 feet of Kevlar on every wick or more. And I hand stitch all the wicking so that the Kevlar actually has a longer lifetime, and you don't have any exposed metal and screws to come into impact and break or cause damage to you or anything else that they might come into play with. And it's aircraft grade aluminum 6061, which is only the best. It does not bend under most conditions. It's very difficult to do anything to that aluminum, and the grip is actually a tacky, rubberized, pliable overgrip that works much better than the foamy, padded, impact-resisting grips that I see a lot of other manufacturers put on their staves that don't actually do anything for contact staff. They just slide right off you most of the time. And center point is actually glow tape so that you can see it in the dark. When you're doing tosses or on a dark night when the flame is blinding you from everything else, you will not have a problem seeing that center point. But yeah, I make and sell these. I've got a lot of research and development into them, and that's exactly what I use, and that's why it looks so smooth, because these are smooth, and I make sure that that's the case. But if you're interested in getting one, you can check us out online at Firetech Shop on Etsy.com or on our website, firetechnicians.com. And thanks a lot for watching, everybody. I hope you learned something, and keep spinning.